Manus 1.5 just released, and it's looking to be one of the most impressive models on the market. And what's incredible is they've actually completely restarted this entire model from scratch. So they didn't even use 1 to start with. They actually just completely rebuilt the version 1.5. And what that's meant is that there's been a huge number of interesting updates. We've got things like they've obviously improved the speed, and they've mentioned that it's sharper quality. I think this piece is actually much more interesting around unlimited context. So you can have a huge amount of project data that you can add in. One thing that I'm going to be interested to understand is how long can that context window be, and how are they really solving that problem? Because it's a problem that exists in all different LLMs. And so I'm excited to kind of test the ability for that. If they can solve that problem without having, for example, what Claude Code does when you just have these reduced sort of context summaries that it uses, then that's a really big win. So interested to see how they tackle that. They've also got a smarter app builder, which they've said has unlocked a whole load of interesting use cases, and I'll actually go through these here. So you've got, like you said, faster and smarter unlimited context. What you can actually do now when you're building apps with Manus, so if you're an app builder, definitely think about this. You can do things like enable notifications, so you can understand when users have gone to your app. You can do custom domains. You can actually build in databases into your application directly, so it does the whole back end. Version control, which I think is pretty crazy. And one thing additionally that it has automatically sort of ready is built-in analytics. So lots you can do within Manus now for specifically building applications. And then one other piece to mention is just the speed. And I know we mentioned this at the start, but just to explain fully what's happening here. From April, when they first launched, it was around 15 minutes to do a lot of these complex tasks, which is now down to under 4 minutes. So huge improvement in speed. It did used to be sort of what felt like when you were using Manus, these deep research tasks that would take a long time to sort of go through. So great to see that these improvements have been done. And what we're going to do today is try and use Manus for one use case that I'm quite excited about, which is their computer use. So let me just show you. They have a interesting piece of their product where you can do a number of interesting things. Actually, you can schedule tasks, which I think is really cool. So you can sort of say, every day, this use case, it could be go to product hunt and give me a summary on the trend. So it's sort of setting up these automation like tasks, kind of similar to Pulse, which ChatGPT has. It doesn't think autonomously for you and deliver you updates, but nonetheless is interesting. And the other one that's interesting is Cloud Browser. So you can actually give your logins, grant permissions, and then it will go and access different areas of the internet for you. And this is one of the pieces we're going to use today because it unlocks a number of use cases, particularly for things like accessing social platforms and doing stuff on that side. And then also it's got Manus Computer. Now, I think this is incredible. Basically, what it's doing is you have a different range of tasks that you're doing. So let's say you're going and you're getting you're asking it to do a big thing, basically, and it will break down that task into different elements, and then it will use the different components of Manus AI to go and execute it, but do the whole thing autonomously, and then you can interrupt it whenever you need. So it sort of spins up these mini computers to go and do that. So very interesting. And we're going to test it out today. Now, the use case that we're going to do is I create a lot of LinkedIn content, and like most people that are creating content, you ideally want to be across multiple platforms. So I'm actually a massive fan of X. I think that while LinkedIn is amazing for B2B and getting customers, I'm a massive fan of X. X is a lot further ahead in terms of the innovation and the topic and discussion that's happening, and it's big for sort of just tech Twitter generally. So I want to be able to basically take the LinkedIn content that I'm making, and then I want to turn that into X posts so that I can save time to at least create my first draft to give me some ideas about the content to make. Now, what I want Manus to do is I want it to basically analyze my LinkedIn profile, and then I want it to based on my profile, go and find me X profiles that I'm similar to. Because what we're going to do after this is we're going to set up a Claude skill. I actually love Claude for creating content, and Claude's just announced skills. So I want to create a skill that turns my LinkedIn posts into X posts, but I want to do it based on things that I know are well performing. So what's going to be interesting here is Manus going to be able to access my LinkedIn? Because obviously LinkedIn has a number of barriers around logins and authentication. And then how is it going to be able to actually access X and scrape that content? And is it going to be able to find those profiles? I'm giving it a relatively ambiguous task here. So it's got to sort of understand that my profile, what kind of content I make, and then it's got to look for other people that are performing really, really well in that niche on X. So interested to see how it approaches it, and we're going to do the whole thing live now. Okay, so we've got different modes here. We've got, what are these ones? Doesn't actually say. I think that's, adaptive. So instant answers and agentic execution, tackle complex tasks and deliver results autonomously. Let's go for the agent. I think that will allow us to, and actually, Joe, what's amazing now, by the way, before we get into this, you can now create video and audio directly within Manus. So they've got their own video models, kind of like a VO3 or a Sora 2, but not as good a quality as I'd first seen, but nonetheless, you can prompt to get that to execution. You have all your connectors here as well. Let's use the agent. I'm going to say, I want you to analyze my LinkedIn profile and all my previous posts from the last 5 months. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give it my profile. Whisperflow taking a bit of time to load, actually. It's usually very fast. Profile here. So that you can understand the type of content that I make. And then I want you to go onto X and I want you to find creators that create content like me that are doing very well in terms of audience and engagement. And then I want you to analyze their X content and X profiles for themes so that I am able to understand what makes their posts do well. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take the Claude Skill sort of overview, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just include that and explain the context around the fact that I want to create a Claude Skill, because it might help you to sort of them to understand how to collect the data. The reason I want you to do this is I want to create a Claude Skill that turns my LinkedIn posts into X posts. And I want to use these learnings that you find to help give it context to help it make really good X posts. Okay, cool. So I'm going to just see what it does. And I'm going to click enter. And usually what happens is it will kind of create an action plan. Yeah, and you can actually see here what's happening is it's doing the first task. Now, let's just look at this quickly. So it's saying, analyze my LinkedIn profile and the post for the last 5 months. It's then going to identify and research successful X creators, analyze the X profiles of content, synthesize for the Claude Skill. And this is awesome. Look at this. So I can see the LinkedIn. So you can actually see here, this is what's happening, by the way. So this is amazing. So you can see here, it's now found my LinkedIn profile and it knows it needs to log in. So it's then basically said, take control of the browser, provide my credentials, and then we can go there. So I'm going to say take control, and it's going to open up the browser. Now I'm going to allow it to just access everything. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to add in my details. Now, is it going to be able to, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to add in my login, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, great. So I've just added in my email and my password, and then let's sign in and see. Yeah, so we're not really getting anywhere. I've done a couple of refreshes and it's not working. So I'm going to exit control. I put in my login credentials, but now it's just loading and saying it's doing a security check, but it isn't actually progressing. Okay, I'm going to say, now let's see what it does, because maybe there's a way around it. Link to some strict security. Well, let me try a different approach. I'll search for publicly available information about your LinkedIn post. Yeah, I mean, good that it can actually, that's a bit of a shame. I was really hoping that we could get access to my LinkedIn, but nonetheless, at least what it is doing here is it is going through and sort of just seeing at least my top LinkedIn posts. So you can see here, I know some of these are like definitely ones that have a lot of information. However, yeah, I think it's going to continuously run into this issue because it's going to need to go through. Now, good that it's going through and it's found this X content. It's just a shame because I really wanted to understand the detail of the posts that I've made. Capture some of your X content, identify patterns. Now let me analyze successful creators. How can I want you, let's just interrupt and see if we can do it. I want to not take any overview of my X profiles, but I really want to get access to my LinkedIn content so that you can use that. Can you please go back and try and get access to my LinkedIn content? I will try log in again. So let's just see how it works when we interrupt it. So yeah, it's understood the request. Now this is really useful because you don't want to get blocked in tasks, right? So let's go back. So sign up. That's not what I want to do. Now how do I take control? Here we go, take control. So I'm going to click sign in and then I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so what I've just done is I've actually just logged in to LinkedIn and I've just given it access, and then what I've done is I've then just given it a prompt to just say, okay, now that you've got access, go and look through my LinkedIn posts over the last 5 months, go and analyze those themes, because it went to X when it couldn't get access to LinkedIn, and that's not going to get an accurate view of the kind of content that I've been making because I've been focused on creating content on LinkedIn first to grow an audience there, to then, now expand into X as well. So I have actually just interrupted its flow and asked it to go back, but now it has access. So let's see if it can get a good view of my content. Okay, so finally we've seen some movement, and actually what's just happened is you can see here it says handling browser issue, which I'm not surprised about. It was sort of stuck on there, and you could almost see the way that it was analyzing the X profile and gathering data there compared to the way that it's analyzing this LinkedIn stuff. Yeah, failed to connect. Wow, that is a real shame. Let's give it a few more moments to see if we can get around it. I'm actually just going to ask it, are you... Oh, as I say that, it's now thinking. Here we go. Okay, it seems LinkedIn sessions isn't persisting in the browser and this is a very strict security. Let me try a different approach. I'll search publicly for LinkedIn posts and combine what I've already gathered. Alternatively, you could export your LinkedIn posts and provide some screenshots. Oh, that's a good one. I think, honestly, just because I want really good content, I might export the posts, and I think I have that data. So let me actually just try and do that, and then I will come back to this. Okay, so what I've done is I've now got this full CSV that has all of my posts, all of the engagement numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to attach that, and then I'm just going to say I have added exported data of every single one of my LinkedIn posts and the engagement statistics. Please use this to analyze my content and then find those X creators that create content like mine and have really good engagement on X. Great. So sometimes you seem to just need to actually, like, if you're running into an issue, it clearly had a problem with it's the Manus computer basically. So I just gave it a little bit of a reboot and it works fine. But if it's taking ages and not really doing anything, that's probably why. So you can see here now what it's doing is it's creating a markdown file basically of all the top pieces of content. And then actually it's going through and just looking at kind of like, you can see here, primary topics, what it's creating. It's also analyzed my top performing posts. So it's, got a good overview there. Even is able to look at like media usage and my writing styles, what hooks work really well, common opening patterns. This is great. This is really, really good. And I think the more data that you can give it, the more it can see, and it even looks at like content patterns. So value proposition, educational. Now what it's doing is it's now going and doing this X searching. So I'm very interested to see what it does here. It seems to be going through, and let's have a look at what it's finding on those creators. And then I'm very interested to see, like, do they actually create content that's related to what the kind of content I'm looking to make. So today we're unveiling a personal assistant, groundbreaking AI assistant, forget vibe coding, it's time for chaos coding, prompt Claude, vague idea, keep it going repeatedly, watch, okay. I mean, yeah, he's talking about AI, that's for sure. And also just reflecting on other general sort of tips and tricks. So I think that's a good profile, actually. Generally commenting on AI. Okay, level SO, sure. Talks a lot about technology, has a huge following. I think it's fine that he's found that. We get someone that maybe I'd recognize or is very specific on sort of like AI automation. I think that's what they're doing, actually. They're taking maybe a range of different profiles here. Wow, they found Greg Isenberg. That's really cool. He is definitely someone that is completely targeting on my niche. So amazing that they've actually found that. And they've done, they're now adding, so that this is to this sort of like creator analysis markdown file. So they've taken some of their top posts. I'm interested to sort of see like where it lands on the analysis, and do we need to do any other work to get them to sort of analyze it in a bit more detail. Okay, here we go. So now it's created a document which is specific for Claude Skills. So you can see here that it's looking at my LinkedIn themes, and it's looking at actually the best practices. I think what I'm actually going to ask it to do, and I think this is kind of important, is something that I want the Claude skill to do is I want it to understand the different types of X posts that people do, and that it's not always threads. So for example, I want you to look at these creators that you've identified for good X content, and I want you to look at the different types of posts that they do. Sometimes they do a very short post, sometimes they do one singular X post that is a large number of characters, and then sometimes they do threads, and there's different styles that they use and different ways that they approach it. So I'd like you to analyze each creator for those insights, and then in the Claude skill, I'd actually like you to, every time I ask you to turn like a LinkedIn post into an X post, I'd like you to create it in each of those format styles, because then I can sort of choose, okay, for what I think best fits the format, I can then choose. So please go and do that research and then update the Claude skill with that information. Yeah, great. So it's actually short. It's actually analyzing sort of like short and single tweets, long tweets, threads. You can see how quickly it's starting to work through this stuff, by the way. It's moving very, very fast, which is awesome. Okay, now this is very good. It's not actually analyzing each tweet specifically and just going through and looking at them. And then it's taking different examples for each format. So what I'm interested is, how is he actually going to get, are they going to get the detail on each one, or is it just going to take, so for example, in this medium thread, are they actually understanding? Okay, yeah, sort of. I don't know whether they're actually taking the expanded information on each tweet or not. So it looks like it's not, but let's just see what it now does with Greg's as well. See, for example, you want it to be going into the show more and to actually be getting the full text of each tweet. I might say, make sure that you are getting the full information on each tweet. So actually clicking more and then getting the full detail on each one, not just taking the brief overview that you see when you scroll on someone's page. Yeah, okay, wow, it's taking all the tweets. It seems to be working. Okay, great. And then it's actually creating a separate markdown file, it seems, for the example conversion, which is cool because I'm guessing that's another markdown file, but it wants me to add for the skill. So I think what that means is it's understood that this is how skills actually work in Claude, because I did give it that Claude link, and then it's now creating multiple files that I can use. Okay, wow, here we go. So that took a little while, but we had to get around the LinkedIn barrier. So now we know what we can and can't access and how to then get that data. But what it's very good at is open sites. X is a lot more open. It's very good at managing that. And once you're kind of using the computer to interact when you need to, being able to sort of just get it to update is really useful. And honestly, what's crazy is that I've done this in one context window. So I have, basically had this full thing done with one go, which is amazing. You don't get this in Claude, that's for sure. So let's see what we've got here. First of all, we've got it's just explaining the skill overall. So we've been through this already. It's got the multiple formats, the explanations. It's really well understood as well, these best practices, and understood well people that are relevant in my niche. I think this is a pretty good overview of some interesting people for me. So, for example, so it's basically just analyzed all of my original LinkedIn posts, done some analysis, and then created some example formats. So like basically different versions, right? And then that just means that I don't have to do any work here, which is really, really good. And then it's actually just done general analysis, so it can include that, what does well on my LinkedIn, what doesn't. And then the final one is the complete X post format analysis. So as you can see here, it's taking like these longer posts and then analyzing them, comparing them to different creators, and he's basically also just looked at it in different varieties around what's working. What I'm not sure it did was did it really actually look at the sort of full view of these tweets? I'm not sure, but it's definitely done some really, really good analysis, and it's got all the information it needs to do that. So this is really cool, and I'm very impressed. I would highly recommend you to get Manus, start to use Manus. It's very, very impressive in terms of its capability and computer use. So much better than, to be honest, any other agent that I've seen, particularly in the way that you can interact. It's much better than ChatGPT's operator, for example. So would highly recommend, if you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments and I'll be able to cover them. And yeah, good luck with building.